Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order, and first I'll read our virtual meeting disclosure. The Sahuarita board members and district administration are meeting at the district auditorium. There will also be accommodations for up to 25 community members to attend the meeting. The meeting will be live streamed by use of YouTube, which allows for members to view and or listen to the meeting virtually. If you need accommodations, please contact Betsy Palacio at email bpalacios@sahuarita.net. A link has been provided for any call to public comments. 20 minutes will be allowed for reading of online and in-person comments at the meeting. Any comments not read during the agenda item will be entered into the public record. We'll adhere to the board meeting procedures to the extent practicable. An audio recording and or draft of the minutes from this meeting will be available to the public. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. If you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll start with the roll call.
Governing Board President Kevin Opalka.
Here.
Governing Board Clerk Denise Reese.
Here.
Governing Board Member Sherry Lowell.
Here.
Governing Board Member Dr. John Sparks.
Here.
Governing Board Member Nicole Warner.
Here.
District Administration Superintendent Dr. Manuel Valenzuela.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Scott Downs.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Brett Bonner.
Here.
Chief Financial Officer Lisette Huey.
Here.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda, the revised agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir, President Opalka, members of the board, I would recommend your approval of the agenda as it was revised.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda, but to revise the order. Right now, I think the item that most of us are here to talk about this morning is item number 9, new business and governing board. I'd like to move that to just following recognition of staff and students, to make that kind of the first order of business this evening. So that's my motion, is to move that up so that we have the discussion earlier in the meeting rather than later.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move that up to
Thank you.
item number 6. Okay, the approval of the minutes.
Yes, sir, President Opalka, you have in your packet draft copies of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the board from May 26, 2021, and after review and consideration, I do recommend approval at this time.
I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The same? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to ratification of the vouchers. Ms. Huey.
Good evening, everyone. I recommend ratification of expense vouchers 2167 through 2170, totaling $262,747.20. Additionally, I recommend new expense vouchers 2175 to 2178, totaling $8 million, for a grand total of $8,262,747.27.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We'll move on to superintendent reports. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Opalka, members of the board. Just a few items to report on. First, I'd like to commend our Chief Financial Officer, Mrs. Huey, on a truly outstanding audit report. We are audited through a very comprehensive and rigorous process, and the firm of Heinfeld and Meach was on campus reviewing multiple facets of our financial practices, and we received a very fine exit report, specific reference to enhancements and developments of our systems that integrate our human resource and our financial functions, development of strong checks and balances and accountability measures, and general organization, service, and responsiveness. So thank you, Lizette, for your efforts with that. I also was honored this past weekend to go down to Rio Rico and attend the Arizona 19 Most Influential Youth Award. And this is an initiative sponsored by our local paper, the Green Valley News, the Sahuarita Sun. And they recognize youth literally from down in Nogales up through Rio Rico, Patagonia, Green Valley. They take Continental, Sahuarita, and charter schools along that entire I-19 corridor. And of the 19 or 20 that were recognized, I don't think that's all of them per se, but like 10 of them were Sahuarita students. So our students continue to make us extremely proud. I would like to share that the summer programs are off and running. I was this morning I was at On the Trail at the K-8 program, and we have 174 students at the K-8 program and 221 enrolled in our high school program. So we're very grateful for that program, and it's running throughout this month of June. I'd also be remiss as I move toward the conclusion of today's report if I didn't take just a moment to say thank you to Mr. Scott Boone, who's, as usual, kind of moving fast and often behind the scenes, but Scott's been our director of technology for the entire tenure that I've been in Sahuarita, which goes back to 2005. He started working here as a biology teacher in 1994, I believe, and literally came before the computers. I mean, he built the network from the ground up. Scott is retiring for good, I understand, this year. And this is actually his last board meeting. So I just wanted to say thanks to Scott for his, more than a quarter of a century of dedicated service to the Sahuarita Unified School District. And finally, I just want to read, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read parts of a very nice letter that I received within the last couple of days. It comes from the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. And it says, Dear Manny and Sahuarita colleagues, thank you for your tremendous efforts in partnering with Health and Human Services, increasing community access to testing applied to school settings, and for being the first school district in the United States to implement it. Through your leadership, your teams did an incredible job of developing COVID-19 testing strategy and implementing the program in a rapid timeline. Your program was an unequivocal win for public health. The information that you provided to ICAT and evaluation teams will be used to improve HHS's ICAT and Operation Expanding Testing programs through the CDC. You were outstanding partners, and we humbly thank you. With kind regards, Michael F. Aya DeMarco, MD, MPH, Rear Admiral, United States Public Health Services, Assistant U.S. Attorney, or Surgeon General. Wrong profession, sorry. So I thought it was a very nice note of appreciation. I wanted to share it with the board with gratitude. And with that, my report for this evening is concluded. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to governing board reports. Dr. Sparks.
Just short today, I'm great. Too want to thank Scott Boone for his over 25 years of service. So appreciate that. Sorry, you couldn't hear me. Just grateful to Scott for his service over the last 25 years, and grateful to be here, and hope everybody's enjoying the warm weather this summer. So that's all I have to share tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lowell.
No report.
Ms. Reese.
No report tonight.
Ms. Warner.
No report.
Well, thank you very much. And I don't have anything to add today. I'm just happy to be in summer. All right, we'll move on to, since there's no recognition of community or staff, we'll move on to the new item 6, the recommendation or mask optional proposal. Dr. Valenzuela.
Thank you, President Apalca, members of the board, and community as well. You know, we stand at yet another crossroads in this journey that has not been easy for any of us. Through it all, I can say with sincerity and clarity that although everybody hasn't always agreed, we have strived, and I can speak for myself and our team, and I believe our board, to walk in a way that does balance safety and does balance education. We've tried to move slowly and steadily, and we've tried to be consistent in making our decisions in consideration of referent dashboard information from referent authorities, considering the opinion of our designated public health experts, and also what's going on in our local community. So, oh, I said, I'm sorry. I'll try and speak up a little louder. I'll try and speak up. Thank you. Thanks for the heads up. So I'll say that part again. But basically, we've tried to walk in a consistent, sound, and balanced manner. I know it's been tough, and I know people haven't always agreed. The situation has been uncertain, it's been dynamic, and frankly, I think we all would agree that whether it's in schools or businesses or stores or any other entities, it's been somewhat common that whenever decisions are made, there will be some that agree and some that don't agree. And that has been true, I believe. That's been my experience. Yet, I can say again with total sincerity that we've tried to walk the walk and do the right thing, and we'll continue to strive for that balance in all that we do. Having said that, we're at this point where, in that same spirit and with that same criteria, it's time to kind of reflect on where we are right now. Well, right now, the numbers, those referent dashboard numbers that I was talking about in a real basic sense, are in what is deemed the moderate level, the yellow level, if you look at it. And they're actually doing fairly well. Like this morning, I asked Mr. Downs for his daily briefing, and I think they were sitting at around 25 point something per 100,000. Additionally, 50% of the eligible adults in Pima County, I understand, have been vaccinated for COVID-19. We continue to work with public health in support of communication, raising awareness, hosting opportunities for people who would like to have that convenient access, but that's another factor. So the numbers are down. The opportunities for vaccines are increased. As we know, in mid-late May, the Centers for Disease Control did lift the mask requirement for those that are fully vaccinated, which is exciting and encouraging. I think it's an indication that these vaccines are effective. I saw another report today that they seem to be holding at about 91+% efficacy in terms of preventing serious disease. Now there is additional pending guidance from the CDC, but frankly, we may not get that till July or maybe even August. And we feel that we have a need to communicate. In terms of our local situation, that was that third pillar, our local situation. In that ICAT testing month, which was about a month from April to the end of the school year, that was referenced in the letter, we had literally a handful of positive cases, less than 5. And compared to what we were looking at in that December, January timeframe, that's also an encouraging local indicator. I talk to our mayor regularly, and the general Sahuarita numbers appear very encouraging, frankly. So when you consider all of that and the fact that we're here to serve the public and we strive to make decisions with as much timeliness as we can, I think that it's reasonable and prudent, although things might not be crystal clear, the weight of the evidence does suggest that a shift, a change in direction is reasonable and prudent at this time. And so based upon that information, I recommend to the governing board this evening that we initiate the process to move to a mask optional standard for the 21-22 school year. My recommendation, additional information would be that you consider making that effective July 1, and the rationale for that is that we've strived, again, we're not perfect, but we have strived to be consistent and balanced and fair. And we've always tried to give people as much timely notice and as much certainty in what's a very uncertain situation. We're at the end of the current fiscal year. The fiscal year ends on June 30th. It would allow for the completion of currently in progress educational programs, including our summer school and it sustains the norms that were communicated to people when they signed up for those programs. And similarly, it allows us to kind of begin with the new fiscal year to make that transition kind of slowly but steadily with welcome back events and registration events, and for our 12-month employees who are already on site anyway, so that the school year would start and it would be a smooth and methodical shift from the old fiscal year to the new fiscal year. I think the weight of the evidence supports this recommendation at this time. I think it's reasonable and prudent. That is my recommendation at this time. Again, the situation has been very unpredictable. All we can do is evaluate the data as it changes, and in my honest professional recommendation and opinion, the time is right to make this move, and so that is the recommendation this evening.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mandy, I'd like to move that, but I'd like to amend that motion to make the cessation of masks mandatory, moving to optional tonight at this board meeting.
Do we need to approve it and then talk about it?
So I made a motion and I did alter it, so someone would need to second it.
Second.
I didn't hear it.
So I basically said to accept the agreement, and Mandy, Dr. Valenzuela, I apologize. I agree with many of the terms that you did. I do look at the data, and the data is trending in the correct way. And I think ultimately, from a perspective of overall impact, moving that date to today, instead of waiting until the 1st, just to remove that now. I do understand that it impacts some summer school, but I think we also did give pretty consistent notice that we were talking about this tonight. The letter went out to the entire community. And so I'd like to make that motion to move to that status for the fall, but also make it effective today. And that's what I said. And I know Sherry heard me and she seconded. Did you hear what I recommended?
I heard it.
Okay. So,
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion?
My concern would be with the parents who chose to sign their children
Yeah.
up for summer school, as you said,
can't hear you.
continuing what was. My concern would be, I'm going to remove this for a moment. Yeah, it's great. My concern is for the parents who signed their children up for summer school with one standard in place. Now, I want to preface that by saying my children are not in summer school. This doesn't impact me personally, but I agree with what you said about maintaining the fidelity of what we presented as the summer program, which is coming to an end July 1st. That's a few weeks from now.
Dr. Valenzuela, what is the end date for summer school?
Mr. Bonner can give you an exact date. Mr. Bonner, please.
It's on Tuesday, June 30th. We don't roll over to the fiscal year. So the official last day is June 30th.
I just really have to say thank you to everybody in the community who has emailed us and given us time to, research what they've been saying. And we have had many, many emails on both sides. And the emails from the other side have stated that this is how they enrolled their kids. They are all for it to be optional next school year, but to complete the school year. And so I want to be considerate of those parents who have done that. But you also said we have how many total in school, summer school?
Well,
350?
it's
Nearly 400. It's like 395.
That's exactly right. 395.
I mean, certainly our own dashboard that we have for the elementary school, which I am incredibly grateful for all the people who signed up for voluntary testing so that we do have those numbers on our own website, on the road back, on the positive transmission school closures. The numbers that we have had in the elementary schools have been very little, and the kids who are 12 and older do have had the option to be vaccinated if they so choose. The numbers are incredibly low. I'm interested to hear what everybody else is saying.
Any other discussion? Yeah, in consideration of those who, you know, took and enrolled their kids with the safety protocols that were in place, I too think that holding off until the July 1st is probably in the best interest of those who have those 400 people who did sign up, you know, under those conditions. I think that's probably the wisest thing to do. And you know, at the end of the school year and the transition to the new school year, that's it seems like an appropriate time to move. Of course, we would reserve the rights to make it mandatory based on the dashboards, and if we move back into the moderate, or from moderate into the you know, substantial or even high transmission, heaven forbid, that masks would again be mandated, right? So that's my opinion, you know. So.
Dr. Valenzuela, what is the population density inside a classroom at this point for those students who are in summer school? So for example, what are we looking at? Are we looking at 10 kids per classroom? Or are we looking to 30 kids per classroom? What are we looking at?
I will speak anecdotally based on my pop-in visits, and then I'll defer to Mr. Bonner. My walk-ins have suggested classroom sizes of about 15 to 16 students in a class. Mr. Bonner?
That's accurate. We did intentionally plan to hold more classroom sites with less students in. We are actually offering more students summer school opportunities because of the impact educationally this past year. So we're at enrollment numbers higher than pre-COVID, which is good for kids, but we did create smaller class sizes. And to give you the exact dates of the summer school program, now that I have it at my hand, for our K-8 summer program that's hosted at Anza Trail, that program ends on June 24th, and the high school program hosted at Sahuarita High School that is comprised of all of our high school students, that program ends on June 25th, so a day later.
Okay. And then following up, so are distancing protocols still being adhered to within those classrooms?
Can you restate the question, please?
Are distancing protocols still being adhered to inside those classrooms?
All the current guidelines and protocols established with mask wearing and social distancing are being adhered to. There are mask breaks throughout the day for both high school and the K-8 program. So everything that was taking place at the school site level during the regular school year has transitioned and is in place currently in our high school and K-8 summer school program.
Mr. Bonner, are we adhering to the recommended 3 foot, or is there an opportunity to have 6 foot, 6 feet between students in a classroom if masks go optional?
6 foot is challenging. We're doing the best we can to adhere to the 3 foot. And again, we intentionally made the classes smaller in scale, where historically you would have students anywhere from 20 to 30 students in a classroom. We've been averaging anywhere from 15 to under 20.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to add in addition to that, that while it's true that adults who have had the opportunity to be vaccinated have had ample time to get that vaccination, it is not in a child's ability to obtain that vaccine on their own. As such, coming from a child's standpoint, maybe their parents scheduled it for around the time summer school ended, because in the meantime, they were very busy and they had mask wearing protocols or whatever it was that made them feel safe to put their child in the program. So looking at it not just from a standpoint of adults arguing, but from children who cannot speak for themselves or drive themselves to the doctor to get the vaccine, I think that we should maintain the policy until the end of summer school, because that is what they were signed up for. That is my opinion.
Any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the table is to make masks optional at today's date, effective immediately. So all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we,
Would the people in the audience please keep your mouths quiet, or you can leave the building? This is not a public meeting town hall where you get an opportunity to randomly blurt out and disrupt the board business, you will have an opportunity to be heard at the call to public. And if you can't wait until then, you are more than welcome to leave right now, or we can have an officer escort you out at the next disruption. Okay?
Mr. President, can we have a roll call vote so
Yeah.
that we know exactly what everybody votes?
Correct, yeah. Dr. Sparks,
Yes.
Ms. Lowell,
Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Ms. Warner,
No.
Kevin, no. The majority rules, so effective immediately, masks are optional. Okay, moving on to revised item number 7, the call to public. Ms. Reese.
Renee Kibbe.
I'll remind everyone you have 2 minutes. Please hold your comments to 2 minutes, and at the end of that time, I'll ask you respectfully cease your talking and return to your seat. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for allowing the time to speak to you again and to the public. I appreciate you adding the mask optional proposal on the agenda, and thank you for voting yes. And I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate it because it is going to be 110 degrees next week, and we wouldn't want to lock our kids in the car, you know, in the hot sun. And so we wouldn't want to trap them in a hot mask. So thank you, and I appreciate that. And just for the future, the legislator was planning to vote on an educational budget with the bill 15-342.05 about face coverings for final authority, and it gave the board the decision in the districts to make that authority. But I would ask you to, if this comes up again, I want to advise you or whatever, or encourage you, not advise, because I'm not an expert. This bill strips away any parental rights from the parents. The parents will not be able to choose if what they think is right medically, and it's the parents' obligation and right to be able to make that decision. And if we make the wrong decision for our child, we are responsible, not you. So I ask that you keep that with us, not you guys, because you don't want that consequence from law or, you know, the God-given right that He gave us. So with responsibilities come consequences. And I was seeing the parental involvement of SUSD, the levels incorporated to maximum extent possible, a variety of activities, strategies, and mechanisms to involve the parents.
That's your time.
But anyway, we need to keep the parents involved in the students' lives so they can reach the optimum potential that they have. And there's a couple issues that are coming up all over America.
Thank you, that's your time.
Okay, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
I apologize if I mess up this name. It's Rebecca G. Santomora.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rebecca G. Santamaria. It's okay. I was here last time and I was really emotional. I do apologize. I was speaking about my son and what happened with the COVID contact tracing. And that's why, first, let me thank you for making masks optional. My children did attend the summer school. They felt very safe. They said there was no problem. My son even took the PE class. It was a little bit horrible wearing the mask, but it's over and he's done with it. But with the contact tracing, if you guys plan to do it next year, I think we need a better plan. One child at the high school can send home 20 kids by just saying, I was near so-and-so, 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 and so-and-so. And then they don't have anything to prove that they're not positive. Maybe if that's the case, and they do point out they're around these people, these individuals, maybe then they can bring back in 2 to 3 days a negative test. I'm all for the testing. If somebody wants to get tested, or if you're gonna have the athletes tested again, I know the rapid tests are only 86% accurate. If an athlete gets tested positive, if you can give them the chance to go get blood work, bring it back with the negative. A lot of these athletes, including my own, their next step is collegiate. And they need she needs as many times running as she can. If she gets caught in the group of kids if she's contact traced, then she's not gonna be able to get her times, or she's gonna miss. And it was already horrible last year. I would hate for it to roll on for any of the football players, the wrestlers, anybody in the sports. So if we can contact trace a different way, whether it's 24 hours or 48 hours, if you bring us a negative test, you can come back to school. Or if you tested positive, if you're gonna test the athletes again, if you test positive, if you bring us blood work to show that it was a false negative, maybe something like that. It was just heartbreaking to see, like I had mentioned last time, all the kids that missed so many things. That's my time, correct?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Brittany Ballack.
Okay. So my name's Brittany Blaylock. I have 2 kids in the elementary school in the Sahuarita Unified School District. I want to know why the school prioritized showing a puberty video to a 4th graders instead of working on catching these kids up on their academics, since they already missed so much of the in-person learning this school year. I'm not sure why it was something they felt necessary to show the kids and to take time out of teaching them their math facts, as I know, speaking to other parents and teachers, that the kids are already way behind because of the whole COVID situation and lack of in-person teaching. So not only was this video inappropriate by showing way more than a child needs to know at that age, and some of the comments made in the video were very inappropriate and unnecessary. In the video, one of the kids asked, "Does it matter what size I am?" I will not mention other inappropriate comments or information showed in the video, since my 4th grader is here with me today. I chose to opt her out of the video, in which these kids were given a quiz afterwards, which I don't know why they were quizzed on it. Several parents were disgusted and even upset that they didn't know about it. Some of them didn't take the time to view the video prior to signing the permission slip. Also, when I do go to the website for the pgsschools.com/educators, it says that the video is for 5th graders, but the school chose to show it to 4th graders. In summary, this is something I want removed from being taught in the 4th grade. It should have never been shown to these innocent children. Leave the puberty discussion between parents and their children.
Janine Hughes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Jean Hughes. I am a resident and a taxpayer in the school district. I am also a retired mathematics teacher of students in middle school, junior high, and high school. I was going to speak tonight on the mask proposal option, and I'm glad to see that it has been changed. And I was also glad to hear the administration say that they strive to make decisions in a timely fashion. However, I don't think that should be the only criteria against we judge how we make decisions. I was on a task force for the Continental School District. Let me tell you how they handled the continuity of operations plan. They had a committee, a task force. I worked with teachers, staff, administration, parents, and other community members to review proposals, provide input, and recommend approval in the recent revision and that approval was recommended to the school board by that task force. So we had input from the stakeholders. It appears the way the decision was made tonight that it had not even been reviewed by a number of the people that were voting on it. What the Continental School District did was to put on the agenda for the May 17th meeting the entire proposed continuity of operations plan, not a one-word statement that it was going to be a recommendation of a mask proposal. So I would ask that you would do the same thing. I was really disappointed to see that you did not provide the same level of information and transparency to your stakeholders for this meeting. I'm also disappointed you have not provided information regarding the proposed new course for Wrightson Ridge entitled Leadership Habits. Why the secrets? We've all seen recently how parents are upset with school districts who are not maybe telling the entire truth about what's being taught to their children in the schools. We can't let that happen.
That's your
here.
time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Corey Stevens.
So in recent weeks, a lot of information has come to light to show that we've been led down a path of lies and deceit to the benefit of one man's ego and the gain of corrupt institution, that being of Dr. Fauci. In one email, for example, Dr. Fauci states, masks really are for infected people to prevent them from spreading infection to people who are not infected, rather than protecting uninfected people from acquiring infection. Let that sink in. You all are wearing masks. An article just released looked at a study released by Stanford University, which analyzed data on kids who had tested positive for COVID-19 as inpatients. Only about 55% of them had enough symptoms to need inpatient treatment. Further, it suggests that pediatric hospitalizations for COVID-19 are overcounted by about twofold because the children were likely there for something else and just happened to test positive, meaning they contracted it inpatient or were asymptomatic when they went in. This would suggest that the CDC is grossly overstating their numbers. Yet another lie. We must not rely on the CDC and Dr. Fauci to guide our decisions. Our own health department looks to these untrusted sources. We must stop the madness. We need to stop the testing. We need to look to other sources for information. We can no longer rely on these sources because we found them to be inaccurate. We can't trust them anymore because we've now have information to prove that they've lied to us. They've lied to us. Dr.
That's time.
Fauci has 5,000
Thank you.
emails that we can look to now to show the lies.
Maggie Mitchell.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me address the board. My name is Maggie Michael, and I am here to serve you, all board members, with a notice of demand. You need to read this. You need to pay attention to it. It is an affidavit of notice and demand. What I've listened to here tonight has embarrassed, shocked, and horrified me. The Parental Bill of Rights has been completely ignored in all cases because of, I'll say you over there, fear. Whatever. Fear. It's fear-based. This is not actual science. We've already had proof through Dr. Fauci. Now, you folks in the board have 5 days to respond. Closed copies go, or CCs go to Kathy Hoffman and to Bernovich up in Phoenix. They'll be sent by certified letter. And what I would highly suggest that you all do on the board is search in Google the Nuremberg Code and look at the 10 points. In 1945, a military tribunal found the people who had experimented on people during the war in the camps were found to be guilty, and they were put to either life imprisonment or executed. And that is Nuremberg Code 2.0. It is coming for the people who have done this to our children and to each other, because we have an uptick in suicides, attempted suicides. I don't have enough fingers on my hand to be able to count that right now. One loss of life through self-harm is a sin and a shame for what you people are doing, what all school boards are doing right now. The money, it's all about the money and the federal funds and the state funds. It's time for us as parents and people who live in this state and in this country to stop. Thank you very much.
Amanda Edwards.
Hi there. I just got to say first off, I'm not a rude person typically, but this gentleman over here needs to stop using the police officers as his minions and threatening to throw everybody out all the time. All you have to do is just say, hey, can you please let us vote? You could be respectful. We're angry because you're messing with our kids and our kids' education. That's all that is. It wasn't personal. We're just upset. We want the best for our kids. I am so happy that you voted against the masks. I'm gonna tell you right now, my kids are in an Animax summer camp. Animax hasn't been requiring masks for months. My kids have been fine. Now they're holding their summer camp at Copper View. They went, I think they had a week and 2 days. Somebody from the school district came in handing out masks saying, oh, now you need to wear them. Hopefully somebody will tell them now that they do not, because it's 110 degrees almost outside. So, you know, I'm thankful for that. I do appreciate that. However, the comment over here about how if the numbers go up, let's hope they don't, and I pray that they don't, that the masks will be put back on the kids and mandatory, or is it gonna take weeks and weeks of talk and voting to put the mask back on the kids? Because for me to register my kids back here, and we love, Ms. Lizardi, and we love Rights and Ridge, and I want to, I really do, but for me to put my kids back in the district, I mean, I need to know what's happening. Obviously, things happen that you can't predict. We've learned that. But the testing needs to go. Is the testing gonna continue? I emailed Dr. V today. I haven't heard back yet, but hopefully I do. Is the testing happening again in the fall? To me, that's just sending a bunch of kids home that are not sick. Are you gonna continue to send kids home for headaches and sniffles, you know, when they have allergies? We need to know what the plan is in order to send our kids back to school. And masks is just the first step. It's just a baby step. And it's in the right direction, don't get me wrong, but it's just a baby step. And for those that want to wear masks, I think the masks optional choice is perfect. It's perfect.
That's time. Thank you.
Mr. President, we have one online submission for call to the public. From the Trosper family, hi, we are optional to no mask supporters. We also say no to CRT for many reasons which we will share at another time. We submitted this today to ask why there wasn't a benediction during the graduation. Did we miss it? It's not printed on the program either. From what we understand, it used to be and is still at Walden. Whose decision was it to remove the benediction and why? May God bless our graduates. This is and always will be one nation under God.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the new business instruction, proposed fee schedule.
Yes, sir. President Opalka, members of the board. The board is authorized and annually reviews fees. We strive to only charge fees that are required and that have additional costs and that are needed to meet the basic standards of a particular program. As always, I've asked my colleague, Assistant Superintendent Bonner, to review that, and I'd like to give him an opportunity to make any comments before I make a recommendation. Mr. Bonner.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, members of the board, and members of the community. As Dr. Valenzuela referenced, we are now considering the approval process for the 2021-2022 fee schedule. And we took a heightened approach of sensitivity due to the impact that our families throughout our community and state have been feeling financially with employment loss or just hardship due to COVID. And therefore, we've done minimal changes to the proposed fee schedule for next school year. Specifically, there are 3 revisions, one being a high school level course, Philosophy 101, which is hosted by the University of Arizona. This is not a required course at our high school sites. It is a course that students may register for dual enrollment at the university level, and there's a fee associated with that course, and the fee was historically $500 through the University of Arizona Scholarship Program. That fee is reduced to the student cost of being $176.50. Again, this course is optional, it's not required, and it's through the University of Arizona dual enrollment program. In addition to that, we looked at a better way to communicate to parents the performing arts fees, and it can be misleading when you look at a single document. So I'll give you an example. When you look at, let's say, percussion, there's a $50 fee to be on the percussion team, but through that process, there may be an assessed fee for uniforms. Most of our performing arts, beyond their performance fee, may accrue a fee for uniform purposes, and those fees will vary. So we want to make sure that, one, parents are aware that there may be an additional fee, but most importantly, the programs like percussion, band, orchestra, dance, not to be misled, that there may be a fee depending on the theme or story or performance that they're dressing up as, is communicated clearly ahead of time to parents. And again, that's happening with all of our performing arts. As a parent of 2 former high school students, I'm familiar with that with sports. There was a pay-to-play fee, but there's also fees associated with athletic wear, backpacks, and certain gear. And of course, with performing arts, there's associated fees with some of the uniforms. And again, I made it very clear to our performing arts teams that it's critical that parents are aware ahead of time. And for any reason, if there is a funding concern where a parent cannot afford to pay for that fee, we have boosters at all of our schools, we have scholarships, and we won't turn away families that can't afford the additional fee for uniforms. And if needed, the school sites have the ability to waive fees that are listed on this sheet if there's a hardship experienced by one of our families or more than one of our families. So those are the minimal revisions being presented to you this evening. In addition to that, our goal is to reconvene with our athletic directors, stakeholders throughout our school system to look at upcoming proposals every school year, and do that in December. And just my last closing part is that this fee schedule was shared with the Business Services Department, was shared with all of our school administrators and staff, athletic directors for additional feedback. And we all, with consensus, agreed that let's minimize the impact this year and reevaluate next year if need be. And this will be an ongoing annual event that we present to the board. And I'm open for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. The summative piece that I took away from my conversation and your comments, Mr. Bonner, is that other than the adjustment for the University of Arizona course, the fee schedule that's proposed is exactly as it was during the past school year, for the reasons stated. And with all those considerations, I do recommend at this time approval of the 21-22 school year proposed fee schedule as it was presented.
I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to the new course proposal at Wrightston Ridge, Leadership Habits. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, Sir President Apalka, members of the board. In our never-ending quest to develop programs that are rigorous, challenging, promote success of students, and help them develop the skills of success, this course proposal is being put forth by Assistant Superintendent Bonner, And I'd like to ask him to provide a little context in terms of the process and the scope of the program for the consideration of the board before I make the recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, members of the board, and members of the Sahuarita community. This is a unique course proposal being driven by Wrightson Ridge. Specifically, Ms. Lazardi was very involved in this proposal, along with Mrs. Sarah Mora and Ms. Rebecca Oravec. This unique course will be offered specifically to Wrightson Ridge sixth graders, and the course proposal title is called Leadership Habits, and the course overview is focused on a scope and sequence built on the book written by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and we felt that this is appropriate to share to the board and the public this evening because it does tie into 21st century learning skills and, most importantly, social emotional learning. And we know through the COVID experience more than ever, we will need to continue to provide social emotional support and learning through all of our grade levels throughout the district. So we felt this course is appropriate to share with the board. In this course, it is a quarter long, so 9 weeks long, specifically to sixth graders, and sixth graders that are not in band and orchestra. So if you elect to be in band and orchestra as a sixth grader, you are not taking this course at Wrightson Ridge. And that's consistent at all of our middle school levels. They choose between band, orchestra, or other electives. Currently in the Wrightson Ridge elective wheel, there is PE, there is a CTE course, and there is the art course. The challenge that Wrightson Ridge was having is that there was not a fourth elective. So if you're in band and orchestra, you're fine. It's a year-long elective. But if you're not in those two programs, one of those quarters, you had to repeat one of the electives that you already took. So one of the goals was to create an engaging course for sixth graders that would focus on goal setting, supportive relationships, learning modalities and systems, social awareness, diversity, inclusion, empathy, conflict resolution, and it would be based on hands-on learning, inquiry-based exploration, technology integration, and it would focus again on reading comprehension, writing skills, and it's all tailored through that textbook, as I referenced earlier, Sean Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. I've read the textbook. It's in a lot of leadership courses throughout our nation. Along with Stephen Covey. This is Stephen Covey's son, Sean Covey, who wrote this book. There is no additional cost to the district. What we're doing is we have the 2 teachers that historically would do the repeat course to students. They said, let's create a new course where students have something different and have a different experience to teach those leadership skills, even technology skills. A lot of our students that come from elementary to middle school, even more so with the post-COVID pandemic, technology will be more utilized in our classrooms. So helping students out with Google Meets, using how to use Google Slides, how to set up PowerPoint presentations, how to manage your email account through SUSD. So this would be a support service course for 9 weeks specifically. And in your packets, I provided an outline of each week. So for example, in week 1, it's getting to know you, so it's building classroom ownership, helping students understand their middle school schedule and how to log into your school systems, including all the Google apps. In week 2, it focuses on habits and social emotional learning, so how to make sure you take care of your own personal bank account, like staying healthy, making healthy choices, looking at academic effort and investment by doing your homework, working at making good grades. Week number 3 would be proactive about looking at self-management, how to deal with coping skills, stress, growth mindset, and grit. In week 4 would be begin the end in mind. This is goal setting, turning a weakness or a perceived weakness into a strength, looking at working systems, self-efficacy, and creating visions of where they want to go in their middle school experience. In addition to that, week 5 is first things first. So talking about task management, expectations, and how to manage your time. In week 6, think win-win, so conflict resolution, social awareness, peer influence, social perspective taking, and then in week 7 would be seek first to understand, which is to active listening, the power of nonverbal communication, body language, empathy, advocating for yourself and others, communicating with parents and teachers, and of course cultural awareness. And week 8 is habit 6, which is synergize and to sharpen the saw. This is celebrating differences, teamwork roles, personalities, self-care, life and school balance, and creative outlets. And then the final week would be a competency-based assessment where a student could pick a school advocacy project. They could talk about bully prevention, work on their public speaking skills, but would tailor in all those skill sets that were taught over that 9-week period and do an end of quarter presentation in one of those classes. So that's the summary of the proposal, the scope and sequence. I did invite Ms. Lizardi here, who could respond to any additional inquiries, and I will return it back to Dr. Valenzuela for any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. Just a couple of questions and just thoughts before the recommendation. I think all of us, when we think back to our middle school days, I know for some of us it was longer than for others, but you know, it's a time of tremendous change, right? Physically, emotionally, cognitively, and I think the focus of this program, as I see it, is it's providing students with a tool belt of resources and skills that they can implement in their academic and their personal and in their overall life to succeed and be well. I also would note that, like in past programs, Mr. Bonner, very thorough about consulting the appropriate individuals, and also that we're willing to take thoughtful action steps with promising initiatives. If you notice, he said it's at Wrightson Ridge. If you notice, a couple years ago, we had a similar CTE concept also at Wrightson Ridge. And that program was tremendously successful at teaching young people career exploration skills, again, life skills. And so as I understand it, that program, based on that pilot type model, is now being expanded to our entitled middle school curriculum, correct?
It's going to be offered specifically at Wrightson Ridge. This is the CTE course, Exploration, along with Onza Trail this coming school year.
So it's being expanded as we are able to initiate, implement, and refine. And my hope is that if this one shows promise in terms of student, not only academic outcomes, but also general well-being, that it's hopefully something that we can expand into our other schools as well. So again, for the reasons that Mr. Bonner mentioned and in evaluation, I do recommend your approval of the leadership course for 6th grade at Wrightson Ridge as presented by Assistant Superintendent Bonner.
I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Would you like to
No,
go
you can
first?
go first.
Great. Who am I asking the questions to? I think you said somebody else was here, or I'm asking you?
Sure.
Okay. So I read through it earlier, and I was having a hard time just kind of understanding. So who put the program together? Who put the program together?
Great question. So the issue was having a quarter where students had to pick a repetitive elective. So the elective teachers, Ms. Mora and Ms. Oravec, are both teachers at Wrightson Ridge, worked closely with Ms. Lizardi, school principal, and came up with a course proposal that embedded this scope and sequence. And they proposed that to Ms. Lizardi. She was involved in the scope and sequence. I met with them 2 weeks ago to go over the curriculum proposal, course proposal, and was in support of that as well.
Okay, and then, so some of the things that you mentioned fell into life skills categories like bank accounts and navigating your schedule in middle school, and others you posed as being socio-emotional learning skills. But the book itself is written by a business major, I believe, and is not exactly free of religious undertones in a public school setting. Also, there's no evidence empirically that this program would have any impact on the kids. And my fear is that while the spirit of the program is excellent, that we would fall onto something that has no proven evidence and invest the very little bit of funds that we do have into something that may not work for the kids.
I appreciate the feedback. Through reading the text and looking at the scope and sequence, there are no specific religious undertones or content area that's being taught. The intent was to target specifically social emotional learning and to teach life skills, management skills, technology skills, and to create a support system for students that are leaving elementary and starting middle school.
Can I just make a clarification?
Sure.
The statement, personal and relationship bank account, has nothing to do with financial institutions. I read 7 Habits of Highly Successful People as a young man. It has to do with managing your own bank account inside. It's a phrase. It means, do I do things for self-care, and how do I manage the relationships around me? So it doesn't have to do with financial institutions. It has to do with managing relationships and keeping yourself healthy and how to have that healthy relationship. Not on more, it is written by businessmen. It's about managing those relationships in an effective manner as a team member so you can accomplish tasks. It doesn't have to do with, it is overtly business in structure. It's about managing team relationships. So I just want to make sure, I don't know if maybe I misunderstood. I thought that might have been a concern.
That's a great summary, and you're exactly correct. In fact, I'll even reference Stephen Covey. He talks about emotional deposits. I know I work a lot of hours, late hours, and I have to make emotional deposits with my spouse because she's very flexible about the amount of hours I'm gone away from home. And that emotional deposit may be a letter of appreciation, taking her out to dinner once in a while, but they use that as a context of taking care of yourself, but also taking care of others that are in part of your family or your family union.
Right. No, I understand the concept. I'm just wondering if there's any evidence right now that a program built around a book is actually going to equate to socio-emotional learning for the kids in any meaningful way.
I think it gives context and a framework that can follow an appropriate sequence of social emotional learning, can target those skill sets that I referenced earlier. So it gives a framework to follow. The research is, again, it's going to be more qualitative in the sense that it's going to provide students to work at developing themselves as better students.
So
It
the
doesn't impose
research
right or wrong.
exists right now?
I'm sorry?
So the research exists right now?
I could easily pull up research specific to social emotional learning that would coincide with this type of course.
I meant like specifically for this, using this book as a tool for that.
I could pull up that research. I just wasn't part of the original proposal, but I do find the strong correlation with social emotional learning using this framework because of those context areas that they're targeting. We do see value in time management, so I could find research on that. We do see value on self-advocacy. I could find research on that as well.
I don't disagree with you. I think all of those things are extremely valuable and things that we definitely should be bringing to the kids. My question was only that, is there any research out there that supports the use of reading this book with kids equating to socio-emotional learning for children in 6th grade?
Ms. Werner, I'd be glad to offer whatever insight I can. I think I understand the point that you're trying to say, and I would acknowledge that I'm not aware of any large-scale peer-reviewed empirical studies of Stephen Covey's work, although there may be some, but I understand the point that you're getting at. I think the best way that I would answer that point is we have strived to develop innovative and promising practices even before that level of vetting has taken place. I think the way I heard it in hearing from Brett and the people he's talked to is that this is a situation where we have 6th graders and they have an exploration elective wheel where they take basically 9 weeks of those art and PE and CTE, and basically they're getting a 4th quarter of repetition of one of the others. So in lieu of that, I would acknowledge that this is more of a beta or a pilot that's based on principles that I think we agree are sound. I would say the book is a reference. What I heard is that these specific teachers are basically creating and developing a learning to learn or a study skills or a life management, time management program that is admittedly in its beta or its pilot phase,
In those
and will be
terms,
evaluated.
yeah,
and will be
that-
evaluated over time based on its efficacy and its outcomes.
That I understand, thank you. There was somehow the words, we were missing each other, but
Sure.
thank you, that answers my question.
And Dr. Valenzuela?
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
This is an elective, so for kids who are seeking to learn more study skills, time management skills, life skills, that's something that they would choose to take, correct?
Well, in the sixth grade level, as I understand it, if you are a sixth grader at Wrights and Ridge only and this is approved, and you are not in band, you will go through this because the sixth grade year, the
It's a
idea is
course.
to give them 9 weeks of experience in a variety of different course offerings.
And it would be offered during the first quarter specifically, because they're new, they're transitioning from elementary to middle school, and it would teach these skill sets and leadership awareness, self-advocacy awareness, computer technology awareness that first 9 weeks, and then followed by PE, the
Got it.
CTE course, or art.
I will say that I worked for a major airline in the United States, retired from, and it was taught. We went through a course of that and all leadership training as well. It did not at that point have any reference, religious reference in that training.
That wasn't my main
but
concern. It
I
was-
know, because the book does, and so I think is there a difference between the book and the coursework that they'll be going through?
Can you say
Or
that again?
Is there a reference to religion in the?
No.
Okay, it wasn't in my business training as well, so, okay.
I realize that, I appreciate we have a history in this district of creating programs that go on to be nationally recognized. The Cortez program one is the one that comes to my mind. Most recently, it was developed here, funded here, it's now researched, it's published in a national journal. I mean, I love the continuing drive to improve. Do I think, I haven't read 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, but I have read, I can remember as a young man reading 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, had myself my Franklin Covey leather planner. And while I look back across it now and I can think of things, I could pull that book up and think of things I don't always necessarily agree with or that I found to be a little slightly different. The point I think is that I'm grateful for the efforts to develop a program that I think really does kind of try to hit home kind of broad-based management of environment, whether that be social and emotional, how to plan yourself, how to set goals, how to achieve goals. And I think, I hope certainly that those are taught in homes, but at the same time, I think it's not a bad thing to have it reinforced in schools that, learning to manage your environment helps you be successful, in business and career and lots of things. And I agree that, I apologize if I misunderstood earlier about the bank account. I'm not enamored necessarily with Franklin Covey, but I also think they've been a stalwart business education company for over 3 decades. And I think I've been in companies where I actually paid Franklin Covey to come train us. And of course, I'm not saying we're going to do that because it's very expensive, but I just appreciate the effort to create something that, not to discredit the time-honored tradition of the front office monitor. This is another opportunity instead of in that elective wheel to kind of have more time to learn something new versus repeating one,
That's right.
which I think is really cool. Thank you, that's all I had to say.
Isn't there a course similar to this at Anza already? No?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I thought it was, all right. Any other discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The same? All right, motion carries. We'll move on to item number 11, the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Opalka, members of the board. You have a list of routine consent matters that may be considered in one motion, and I do recommend at this time your approval of the consent agenda in its entirety.
I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The same? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. Motion carries. Possible future agenda considerations. The road back plan, the finalized version of our updated, I believe that's in order to present next month so that everybody has an idea of
Yes,
what's
we
going on.
are working to evaluate, again, based on the changing landscape of the situation, modified, the modified plan. I don't know if we'll keep the same name or change it, but basically a revised action plan as we go forward. And again, we're evaluating that very carefully and trying to keep things in place that are promised, like, good cleaning is important, and also evaluate what might be some elements that, based on the current situation, may not apply. So yes, that will be forthcoming. If not next time, by July. And it is also a required part of our federal grants process, so we are working on it. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other possible future agenda considerations? Okay. Next board meeting will be June 23rd here in the district auditorium. No executive session. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.